On this episode of AVSocial, we talk Take Your Kids to Work Day on April 25th. We discuss mentorship, industry association initiatives, and what we and you can do to get future generations interested in the AV industry.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVSocial, episode 45, Ignite That Passion.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of AVSocial. We're talking today about getting young people involved in the AV industry. April 25th here in the United States is Take Our Daughters and Sons to Work Day. And so with that in mind, we're going to be discussing mentorship, industry association initiatives, and what you can do to get future generations of professionals, future professionals, interested in the audiovisual industry. With me today, as usual, is my co-host, the lovely Miss Kelly Perkins.
Hello.
How you doing today, Kelly?
I am wonderful.
Good. Want to take it away?
All right, cool. So we also have Neil Williams and Kelly Escona from AVI SPL. Neil is the HR director over there, and Kelly is the employee engagement specialist. Say hi, guys.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
And then we also have Renee Franklin with Tierney up in my hood in Minneapolis. She is the HR director for that organization.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. So, you know, all of us that are already in the industry, we know what an awesome industry AV is. Why in general? Why do we want kids, nephews, nieces, our children, neighbor kids? Why do we want them getting into the AV industry? You know, what do you see as the big selling point?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. I would say first and foremost, it's growing. You know, I want my family members and people that, you know, want these careers to jump into an industry that's growing and that's not going to let them down, I guess. So it's growing, and then there's the need. So also the fact that there's so many opportunities for these young people to come into AV and have a really amazing career within this industry. So I think those two factors are really what promote me to promote the industry to others that don't know who we are.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Renee. Just to add a couple additional points too. I mean, the propelling adoption of AV, right, by a multitude of different industries, and they offer exciting opportunities, right, for students who have a passion for creativity and bringing experiences to life. And it's also a future-proof, right? So, you know, there's always going to be jobs in the sector, and because the industry is evolving so fast and so rapidly, there's going to be jobs that don't exist today that will exist in the future.
Right.
And also, just statistically speaking, you know, by 2020, you know, half of our workforce will be millennials, right, or AKA digital natives. And so the more digital natives enter the workforce, the more technology will be required.
Right. So what are some good ways to introduce someone to our industry? What have you found anyway, Neil or Kelly?
Yeah, so I think it really comes down to just increasing awareness, right? So when you're whether it's through internships or creating those relationships with schools, that's also important. But also having these type of conversations that we're having right now, right? That's also going to help promote awareness. You know, we just need to talk about it more and reach out to our local communities. It doesn't necessarily need to be recruiting focused, but built on creating and building relationships and networking with the local community to bring awareness and to address that awareness gap and to help improve our brand and industry's reputation.
So how are you guys doing that locally or in the different areas that you have offices? What types of things are you doing?
Yeah, so we have a lot of local outreach relationships with a lot of diversity organizations, for example. So from a recruiting standpoint, there's a lot of diversity initiatives that are going on. So for example, if I'm talking about Long Island City, right, there's a lot of community events that they do within that area. So we partner with diversity organizations such as those who focus on minorities or women or veterans or those who are disabled, and really just bringing awareness about our industry, what we do and how we do it through local partnerships and events, right? Whether it's through a local 5K or whether it's through painting houses. We have a really strong community outreach program here at AVSocial. So I think we kind of standardize that with some of our other local offices across the nation. And we've had a lot of success there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and to add to that, Neil, really similar to kind of what you guys are doing, we're partnering with a lot of schools. I would say it's kind of twofold though, right? Because we partner with a lot of universities for our internship program. The U specifically has a sales program that we're really involved with to get more sales folks involved with AV, because they might not have ever heard of AV before or what we do. And so that's been really strategic on our end. But then the other side of the house is operations, right? And kind of the system side. And so we partner with a lot of vocational schools and actually send our technicians and installers who graduated from that school or a similar school out there to talk to junior and seniors, saying, this is what I did. This was my career path. This is where I am now. Is this something you would be interested in? And a lot of them are very interested and they're excited. And then they end up coming out and maybe doing a summer stint with us, since it's our busiest time, and kind of seeing what that install looks like and seeing some of these really cool projects that we're doing. So if you can kind of get more of that awareness, like Neil was saying, I think you can really hook them into loving AV like we all do.
Yeah, that's a good point, Renee. I mean, our industry is not hard to sell, right? It sells itself, right? And just getting management buy-in, getting your GMs or other, local management to go out to these universities and create the relationships and build that trust with those students. I mean, that's what students are looking for. And really all they have to do is hold like a 5-minute presentation about what we do and how we do it. And you automatically, to Renee's point,
absolutely.
And it's easy to sell from there.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead. Sorry, Dawn.
No, please go ahead.
I'd say the other big initiative, and Kelly's really involved on the Twin Cities portion, is AVSocial's Minnesota Women's Council. So there's women's councils all over the country that AVSocial is really focusing on to increase awareness specifically in women, and not only just AV, but IT technology sectors in general. And so we have quarterly meetings where we're just inviting everybody we can think of to come learn about what everybody does, and just to kind of get them more involved, saying, you can do this, you can be a director of operations at Tierney, and you can be involved in technology. So
right. And that's actually a good segue for me, because discussing women in technology, women in STEM, we both Neil and Renee have mentioned, universities and vocational schools and reaching out to potential interns. But I read a statistic recently, and I don't quote me on the exact number, but I'd have to look it up again. But there was a study that came out not too long ago that says by time girls reach middle school, girls that previously were equal in interest and passion for science and mathematics and those sorts of fields in elementary school have lost that by a sizable, significant percentage. Do you think possibly we're, maybe focusing this effort a little late by looking at the vocational schools, the university students, even the high school students, maybe taking it back sooner? And so several years ago at one of the AVSocial women events, back then it was Infocom women events, Dr. Bonnie Schnitta spoke and said one of the things she worked on with the Society of Women Acoustical Engineers was getting the Girl Scouts to come up with an acoustic patch, and going out to Girl Scout events, brownies and whatever comes after, cadets and everything, and doing acoustical training with them on a very basic childlike level to keep that interest. Do you think something like that, or are there other organizations like that might be interested in sort of fostering this AV interest at an even younger age?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I think you're right that a lot of times it's kind of already lost by the time they get to high school. And it's obviously we're doing as a society, right? And we actually talked about that specifically in our last AVSA meeting, was really trying to be mentors for these young girls, these young women, to tell them to be brave and to really go for what they want. And I think that, starting at a younger age will help them to get into our industry a lot faster. Absolutely.
Yeah. Neil or Kelly, anything?
I was just going to say, I think there's so many, like you said, Renee, it's a society thing. There's so many organizations and volunteer groups and STEM meetups, et cetera, in and around areas where we live. And I think it's just reaching out to those folks and just trying to go to, like a Minnesota, I'm in Minnesota, so we have the Minnesota High Tech Association that has a women's chapter, and just going and speaking with women there. And, oddly enough, I met a gentleman at that event, and he works for the Minnesota Department of Education in the IT sector, and he runs a ton of STEM events for young girls. And, he's begging people constantly to just come and talk at some of those events. And it's, I'll volunteer because I can give the angle of the audiovisual side of things, whereas, not necessarily specifically IT. So I think it's just, we just have to volunteer and get out there and start speaking at these different types of events. And even, like Neil said, just getting involved in the community and volunteering and just raising that awareness from almost like a grassroots level.
Mm-hmm. Kelly A. or Neil, you guys look like you had something to say, to add.
Yeah, no, you make a great point, Dawn, to think about how you should plant seeds earlier on. I'm into planting. It's one of my passions. If I have like maybe 20 seeds, I might get 10 and I'd be happy. But that really has to come early on. And I think that when you're young, as a woman, you might be playing with dolls. So you think, oh, maybe I want to get into the fashion industry. You never really think getting into a technology side as a girl. And so I do think that that's a great idea. Why not get into elementary or grade school and already start planting that seed? And you just never know how many out of the 20 kids you speak to might say, hey, I remember back when I started researching technology or AV industry. And then here we have someone, 15, 20 years later that is a prominent person in the AV industry. So I like that.
I think by at least a decade or two, I'm the oldest person on this call or on this podcast. But I know growing up, in the 80s and early 90s, there was no, I want to be an AV pro when I grow up. There was barely, I want to be a computer programmer when I grow up. And if you said that, you were looked at kind of weird from all the grown-ups. But you always hear little kids saying, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a ballerina, I want to be a this, or, whatever it might be. If we get in there sooner and show them how cool our job is, playing with big kid toys and all the shiny things all the time, maybe we could get some of those little kids saying, hey, I want to be an AV person when I grow up. And Kelly Perkins, since we have two Kellys on the call today, Kelly Perkins mentioned like the Minnesota different organizations that you have. Here in Maryland, we have like the Maryland Middle School Science Olympiad or something like that. Do we think organizations like that or local libraries maybe, like let's brainstorm some places we can go to like reach out to these younger people and find a way to spread the word that we're a thing.
I would say too, Dawn, I think I'd be interested to see at least if there's a change that comes about now, because Tierney, the biggest focus that we have is K through 12. And so again, when I went to school, I didn't have the technology in my classroom that they have now. And so I wonder if that change, if just changing the technology in the classroom and having all these really awesome tools and their STEM learning tools and all sorts of other products that, are so, valuable to them, increasing, their productivity in the classroom. I wonder if just having that technology in front of them is going to make them feel like they're more comfortable with it, and then maybe would pursue a career that's focused on technology because of that. So I hope that maybe that trend will help us too.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree, Renee, too. And, you know, to your point, I mean, K through 12 is just so important. You know, I'm thinking back, you know, when you're in school and you're talking about, teachers are talking about degrees and passion, you know, professions that you could take, you know, I think that they're saying, hey, you know, you can become a AV professional, right? So I think one of the cool things that we're doing right now that we're actually going to roll out this summer is we're at Columbia College in Chicago. We're going to be rolling out the industry's first audiovisual integration degree. From that, you know, we'll be able to use that hopefully at maybe potentially other colleges, right? But also once getting that momentum going, then we can start going to, you know, high schools or what have you, and kind of exposing them to, hey, we actually have a degree in audiovisual integration, right? And here's what a path looks like, or here's all the other different paths available to these students, and hopefully that will spark a lot of interest at that level.
Absolutely.
Well, and that brings up another good point, and we're totally going off script here, but I know for many years, very few people, probably other than me and, you know, 3 others, looked at it, but Infocom, AVIXA, whatever their name, ICIA at the time, you know, they had assets on their website that you could download and take to schools for Science Week and talk about light, additive light versus, you know, mixing, you know, the primary colors in additive light versus paint mixing and the way light reacts, and audio experiments and things like that you could take to middle school and elementary school teachers and get this interest in AV. So I know AVIXA, somewhere buried on their site, still has these. Kelly Perkins can certainly tell us about all the efforts NSCA is doing to bring young people into the industry with the Ignite program and some of the other things. But I mean, can you guys think of are there any other organizations out there that have this sort of resource for those of us that might be end users or integrators to just say, you know, manufacturers can usually come in and say, well, here's a sample of our DLP chip, and here's how it makes light, and, you know, make a class like that, but some sort of asset or resource we can go to.
No, I mean, I think I'm just thinking right now, at least I'm just thinking of just AVIXA, right, NSCA, and I think if we be those change champions, at least for now, then, you know, I think that's what needs to be done, and I think it'll be really helpful to really maybe create like an ambassador program, right, where we have these change champions from whether it's AVSPL, Tierney Brothers, or someone else, you know, going into these schools at a K-12 level. And, you know, we can have a presentation, right? And it's really just bringing awareness. And so I think that might just be kind of a cool little gateway to kind of get that, to address that awareness gap at that level. So I don't know. SCA and AVIXA, I think, are the top 2, in my opinion. I can't think of any others at this time.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else either, but I would say, in my opinion, you know, it's really up to us. It's up to, you know, the AVI and Tierney's to really work together. You know, of course we're competitors and we compete for business, we compete for talent, but honestly, if it's an industry issue, so it's up to all of us to really get together and work together and come up with things that we're all comfortable with sharing with each other, just to try to get more awareness into the industry, because it's going to help us all in the end. And so I think these types of partnerships, and Kelly has been so great to introduce, you know, a few people that are doing the same things just in different companies. Just getting that introduction and kind of starting to share ideas, I think is going to be, you know, really beneficial to everybody in the long run.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kelly, do you have anything to add with your Ignite?
Well, what I'm
shamelessly plug your website.
Right. Well, we officially launched the Ignite website today, which is super cool. So igniteyourcareer.org. But speaking of like ambassador stuff, I think, you know, I spoke with Brandy Alvarado last week, who really is the spearhead champion behind, you know, the Women of AVIXA councils and all of their events, you know, and just picked her brain at how we could use that type of model, that ambassador or champion, you know, local champion model, to really create kind of, again, the groundswell or the grassroots movement of, you know, raising awareness across the country and across the globe of how cool our industry is and make it really scalable. So that's kind of phase 2 now that we've launched the website, is to really get people involved in those types of activities. So woo!
That's awesome. Congrats,
That is
Kelly.
awesome.
Thanks. I'm excited. So we're getting there.
Fantastic. Well, all right, let's talk about, Renee mentioned it's an industry-wide issue. What are the benefits or possible drawbacks with mentoring young people or shepherding them into our industry? I mean, obviously the benefit is we have people to hire, but beyond that, what do you see as the biggest pros and cons for making this a priority in your companies?
Yeah, I think as an industry, I think any AV integrator will agree that recruiting is an issue, right? Or recruiting is a challenge. And so I think getting these conversations going and doing this and taking advantage of these opportunities will really allow organizations to develop their talent pools, right? And from there, you can increase engagement and improve turnover. And I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. But the fact is, you can build a talent pool and then mold them, from a culture standpoint, what you want them to be. So I think there's a lot of benefits from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Neil. And also, one of the benefits, if you're trying to not convince, but just kind of talk to young people about starting in our industry, there are a lot of paths within AV that don't necessarily require a 4-year degree. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons, number one, they could think it's risky is because they can't major in it. Maybe it's not broad enough for them. What if they don't like it? So that could be one of the risky, aspects. But then also one of the positive aspects could be that you don't have to spend, what everyone else is spending in a 4-year degree, because it's honestly scaring a lot of young people. I have a lot of young people that say they don't want the student loan debt. They have siblings and they have friends that pay $1,000 a month. And so one of our reasonings is, hey, you don't need that necessarily. You could have a 2-year vocational degree in something, and then we can train you. We can set you on the path once you're here. So I think that's really appealing to a lot of people right now.
Yeah, I can name about half a dozen people in our industry that have no degree whatsoever, not even a 2-year, and have the industry's equivalent of a PhD from experience and are making significant money.
Exactly.
Where else can you do that nowadays?
Yeah. Yeah, but to Neil, I honestly think that's such a great partnership, because I think, we get those people that don't want to get the student loan debt, but also we miss out on the folks that do want that 4-year degree. So if we can all collaborate and get some type of degree in AV, we're going to have a lot larger talent pool to pick from. So.
Sure.
Exactly.
So as we're coming to the end of our discussion here, we're going to run a little short on time, but I think it's pretty much a given, agreed across the panel, that we do want to get young people involved in our field. Any advice that you might have for mentors interested in helping get involved in bringing young people in? Or on the other hand, if somebody is young and watching this or listening to this and wants to get involved in AV, what advice would you have for them? Either Renee, Neil, Kelly A, anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Neil. You go first.
I was just going to say, for mentors, just show your passion, right? Show your purpose. And, especially for the young demographic where they want something that matters, right? They want a meaningful profession. They want to go to work knowing that they're contributing to something much larger. And I think mentors, aside from that, they can leave their legacy. And there's just so many cool, positive things that mentors can do, and really to drive, really make a change in the industry. So I think just the passion that they have for the industry and just, having a mentee would really help. And then for the students, just expose yourself, right, as much as you can in the industry. To Renee's earlier point, there are so many avenues within this industry, whether it's project engineer, project management, programming, installation, field service. The list goes on. Something, and then make a lateral move and still be considered kind of a higher move than what you were doing. And so long as that organization provides it, or provides that, that student has just so many opportunities for growth. So just exploring those options, I think, will be really, really beneficial for them.
Yeah, I would say I agree, and not to be afraid to kind of start where we start you, which would be, installer technician level. On the integration side, don't be afraid to go out to the projects and do the work, get dirty, and kind of really experience, what the end result is, because I think we can all attest that our best engineers and PMs and programmers all came from the field. And so don't be afraid to start there, knowing that that's going to get you to where you're going to be a lot faster, and you're going to be an expert by the time you get there too.
And I would second Renee's statement by also adding, and salespeople and marketing people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't sell it accurately if you don't know what you're doing or talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Build a rack.
And there's a lot of students out there too that don't know that you can work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, right? Like we work with Amazon and Toyota and so many other big companies, and these students can go in there, whether it's field service or on-site managed services, and go in there and really learn the industry from the ground up at a client site potentially. And so I think if I was a student, I was like, oh wow, that's a really cool, unique opportunity to really work for such a prestigious company. So I think that would be really cool, just getting that out there.
All right. Well, I think we're just about out of time. So we'll start with Neil and Kelly A. Where can folks find you guys? Online or on the web?
They can go to, they can go to avsocial.com/careers, and they can check out all of our open postings. We also have our international job postings as well. So they don't live here in the U.S. They also have some other job opportunities outside the U.S., but they can also reach out to me, Kelly, or two of my regional recruiting managers.
And are you on the Twitters or anything like that?
Yeah, we're on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, we're on Twitter, we're everywhere.
Awesome. Renee, where can folks find you?
Yep, Tierney.com. Again, we're all over social media. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you can find us. You'll see kind of what we're doing. You can check out our culture and our career page online as well. And then, feel free to reach out to me, Renee Franklin at Tierney.com. And we're just about finishing up our internship recruiting. So if you're interested, I think I have a sales internship open still. Please apply and get involved.
Awesome. Thank you all three so much for coming today. Kelly, the lovely Kelly Perkins, you've got your new website to introduce. Give us a real quick rundown on that and where else we can find you.
The Ignite website is igniteyourcareer.org. There's a job board. There's a map of ambassadors across the country, as well as for both the industry and both for schools if you're looking for students and you're an employer. So there's that. And if you are a student, there's the job board to look for jobs and or internships, and just an overall high-level view of what we do in this awesome AV industry. So you can find all of that information there. Otherwise, Kelly P. Perkins on LinkedIn or at AV Kelly P on Twitter.
All right. Thanks as always for being here. Thank you all for watching and listening today. Again, I'm Dawn Mead, your usual host, at AVDawn on Twitter, Dawn Mead or AVDawn on various social sites. And if you do nothing else, if you take nothing else away from today's show, at the very least in the US, bring your kid to work on April 25th and at least give the kids in your family a view of what AV is, but maybe ask their friends if they want to see too. Hopefully you found something of use today, and we wish you all a happy Take Your Kids to Work Day. Thanks.